Hi everyone, welcome to Ethernal Realms and welcome to the month ahead astrology reading. Make sure you check your sun, moon, and rising signs for a comprehensive view of the month. Additionally, I would recommend watching the tarot reading of the month ahead to get a different perspective. While you will know the astrology in advance through this session, I will also send you a reminder when the astrological events are near. All you have to do is subscribe, hit the bell, and you will be notified as the events occur through my community page. I occasionally post behind the scenes, meditation guidance, quizzes, and polls, which you can check out for yourself. And it goes without saying that you will be notified when new videos are out, such as other zodiac readings and pick a card tarot readings as well. If you prefer to cut down the guesswork about your month ahead, you can always connect with me via Etsy to get a personalized week-by-week month ahead tarot reading paired with the general astrology. Enough about me, let's talk about you. So let's talk the overview of September. Okay, I'm going to divide this into separate storylines. There are a couple of things happening in parallel, and at some points in time, different things are being activated. So just the general themes going on here. Let's talk about the first one. Is that in the month of September, there are going to be lots of changes on the personal level. And that's because we have Mercury and Venus changing direction. Both of them are going to go direct. And whenever that happens, on especially the personal planets of, the Venus, Mercury, even Mars, we experience lots of shifts in our own mindset and how we go about life. Okay, so on a personal level, lots of changes. But apart from that, we also have Jupiter going retrograde on the same day that Venus goes direct. And that's interesting because it's sort of like both of them are moving in parallel, but they're moving in opposite directions. So they kind of see each other, but they can't really meet at this point. So when Jupiter was active, Venus was not, and now Venus is active, so Jupiter is not. And that's going to be an interesting dynamic to see. But apart from that, we also have Saturn in retrograde, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto in retrograde. So everything is retrograde for like the first few days of the month, and then slowly one by one things start going direct. That is Mercury and Venus. So whenever the bigger planets are retrograde, they're retrograde for a longer time compared to Mercury, let's say. So whatever changes occur on that level, we are more susceptible to absorbing because we don't quite understand it, or it's not yet conscious and it's kind of happening in the background, or this is like involuntary changes that we were not initiating but is introduced through the universe. Okay, so it's sort of a time where the universe is speaking louder than we are able to speak. Okay, so there will be less resistance as a result of this. That's the plus side. We are able to accept the guidance and the intuitive nudges much more easily. And because Mercury, Venus are direct, we are able to kind of incorporate that in a personal level. For example, if you feel like your belief system is not doing you any favors, or that the structures you have in your life are not working in your favor, then there is this opportunity to shift those things. But that initial feeling is going to be the universe speaking. That's the trigger that comes from your soul, from your subconscious, whatever. So yes, there will be changes in beliefs, priorities, and mindsets with Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury changing directions. The next story that's happening is that our focus this month is shifting when the sun is moving from Virgo season into Libra season. So when the sun is in Virgo, there's also a lot of earth activities, earth trines, conjunctions, movements, and so on, right? So there's a lot of earthly matters which are going to happen, and it's going to be a dynamic phase because, again, Mercury is in an earth sign in Virgo, and it changes direction, which changes, again, the flow of things. When the sun moves into Libra, we're going to talk more about relationships and communication, what commitment means or partnership means, and how to find equality and balance and all of that. And this is going to be a more rejuvenating phase because Venus is out of shadow by the time, or at least, it is really, really getting out of shadow almost. So it's going to be, whenever a planet comes out of retrograde phase, basically it is essentially rested and rejuvenated. So it's kind of gaining power through the post-shadow phase, and then it's going to fully glow in its eminence, basically, right? So in Libra season, Venus, the ruler of Libra, is going to come into full strength. So this is going to be rewarding, rejuvenating, not only for relationships, but also financial matters. Another theme to talk about is that there are 6 trines this month. All of them are Earth, which is awesome, which means we have physical blessings, material blessings. And we have 1 conjunction, also Earth, which means there is some emphasis days, which we'll talk about when we get into it. We do have 2 squares, and both of them have Venus involved in it. Okay, so the first one is going to be a direct Venus squaring with Jupiter, who's retrograde. And this is going to be an interesting one because, like I mentioned, going parallel but in opposite direction. And there can be this ideology that we adopt around this time that maybe we and our goals are not able to meet, or our value system, our belief system, they are not able to meet. Okay, so if we move with that assumption, it's not going to do us any favors. It can just seem like we're doing a lot of things but we're going nowhere. That's what it can seem like. But that does not have to be that way. Okay, now keep in mind, Venus in this square is going to be in shadow phase, and that is again indicating that Venus is not yet in full power, so it can't really help Jupiter with much, or it can't really do anything. It can't share the experience as such. It's just going about in its own lane. And Jupiter is in retrograde, so it's kind of in that asleep state, so it's not able to exert itself fully around this time either. So with that, if you mix in the square, the illusion or the assumption that we don't have power, or that we still have a lot of other things to be taken care of before we start moving towards our goals, that can be quite strong. But the plus side is, if we remove that assumption, that initial thing, and just go with things with an open mind, an open heart, and just give it a shot, it's not going to be this way. It is actually quite blissful. It can help you recognize what you're really looking for in life and all of that. We'll get into the actual effects more as I talk about your zodiac. Next, the other square is also with Venus direct, but this square, she's out of shadow. Okay, she's going to square with Uranus. And what's interesting is Uranus is going to be retrograde, right? So all this month of August and even July, Venus was squaring with Uranus. In the first phase, she was going into shadow, so she was losing strength. So Uranus was kind of winning this square, let's say. In the second month, in August, Venus was fully in retrograde, so she was not in the mood to contest with Uranus's whims and fancies. Okay, so again, Uranus wins that. This would be the first time where Venus is stronger and Uranus is kind of like, okay, well, I've made whatever I needed to make as a change, and what do you have to say? And what's even more interesting is that Venus also rules Taurus, where Uranus is sitting. So she can really dictate how we're going to take advantage of the changes that have already happened, the breakthroughs we have made, the realizations that have occurred in the months of July and September. Venus is now going to put that into context, put a more pleasant spin to it. Like, it doesn't have to be so drastic. We can, take it one step at a time and make the best of it. So all in all, it seems a little optimistic. And we also have an opposition. That's the only opposition. So one opposition, one conjunction. In opposition, we have Virgo again being involved, but here we're going to learn to balance the emotion side of it. So it's nice that we don't have a completely practical and logical month, which generally happens when we have so much Virgo and Libra presence, but we also have a little bit of emotion mixed in there, so we're able to kind of come back to center. Okay, fourth storyline, let's talk about the moon phases. We have a new moon in Virgo along with Mercury going direct. That's going to be on the 15th. And we also have a full moon in Libra on the 29th. And this is going to be the date that Venus squares with Uranus. So both days we have some important events occurring. So these lunar phases are not going to be boring, to say the least. We'll talk about it a lot more when we get into your zodiac. But in essence, new moons talk about new potentials and new beginnings. Meanwhile, full moons talk about completion of a cycle or pivoting into a new direction. Quite fateful. There can be external help and triggers that kind of show us and point where we should be headed next, basically. Now, the fifth storyline is that eclipse is coming about very soon. So September is sort of a drum roll phase. And at first, we might not feel it too much because we're kind of busy with the whole slumber of all the planets being retro. Then on the 4th, Venus goes direct and so on and so forth. So slowly we start waking up and getting into the mode of realizing the fateful changes that the eclipses are going to bring. Because those fated changes, they are, again, universally directed. And because so many of these outer planets are retrograde, we are, like I mentioned, we don't have that much resistance. We're more accepting of what's coming in. So this is going to be an interesting eclipse season in October, and we're starting to see what it could be about. Okay? All right, let's start with your specific reading. So Sagittarius, let's first talk about all the planets changing directions, and then we'll get into the aspects and the zodiac season shifting and also the moon cycles. So first thing to note is that your ruler, who's sitting in Taurus at this time, Jupiter, is going to go retrograde on the 4th. And this can have some significant impact on you. Perhaps you want to turn inwards a little bit, think a little bit deeper. Introspection is very blessed at this time. Also, re-evaluating your belief systems, religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, all of that can be a part of the story for you. Now, Taurus is in your 6th house of day-to-day routines, lifestyle, occupation even. It also rules, your mentality and certain habits that you are adapting in your everyday life. And there can be some things that you have outgrown. That's a very classic symbolism of Jupiter turning retrograde. Outgrowing or expanding out of a certain space or a certain sphere, and you might find yourself seeking a different type of purpose around this time. What brings me joy? What can I do to impact my everyday life and environment so that I can improve it and expand it, upgrade my living status? So there can be a thought-provoking time. Okay, this whole period that Jupiter is retrograde, you might find some difficulty kind of expanding outside, but it's more of, how can you expand your inner world, or the changes and expansions that have happened already, like can you rethink it, or can you do something with the resources you already have, in other words. Okay, that's going to be the best way to use this. Okay, on the same day, we have Venus in Leo going direct. Venus has been retrograde since July 23rd, and it was in shadow phase throughout July. It was squaring with Uranus in the backdrop as well. So finally, it is going direct in your 9th house of, philosophy, your belief system, foreign languages, cultures, and foreign experiences, immigration, visas, also rules mentorship and guiding ventures. Sagittarius, your zodiac, is generally placed in this house, and Leo is a fellow fire sign, so it is at a favorable angle to you. So all throughout retrograde, whatever you have learned about yourself, your desires and wishes for the future, you're much more clear about these visions, and you can actually put some implementations connected to that. But what is interesting is that we have Jupiter and Venus changing direction on the same day, and both of them are moving in the opposite direction seemingly, and both of them are in fixed signs, which indicates that they are looking for some long-term changes and long-term implementations. So something temporary for today or for this week is not going to be highly beneficial. At least you won't feel satisfied by it, and the planets are also not satisfied with that. So this can be talking about figuring out desires that you have based on the person you have become over the past 5 years, let's say, or the past 3 years even. And how can you change your everyday reality or your outlook of life so that you reflect the same? Also, this talks about your philosophy, right? So how do you see life itself? What is your relationship with life and the lessons you've learned thus far, or even to your mentors? Do you see yourself needing a mentor? Do you see yourself not at all needing a mentor? Perhaps you're done with a higher education, or you're finding yourself inclined towards a different way of expressing yourself. Therefore, you want to go for another degree or take up another course so that you can express yourself much more freely. All of these things are much more available to you at this time moving forward. Another planet changing direction is Mercury, who is moving direct on the 15th. So for the first half of the month, we still have Mercury retrograde, and the same rules apply of no new promises or no new contracts if you can help it. And if there are travel plans or appointments you have, then leave yourself enough space and time so you can take care of each and everything without stressing yourself too much. And Virgo falls in your 10th house of career, ambitions, also your status. And when Mercury goes direct again, on the 15th, you are likely going to have some new ideas or new projects, new promises and contracts that come to mind here. And I say new because we also have a new moon on this day, which I'll talk about a little bit more later on. But regardless, it gives you a sense of clarity and also some type of determination, because Virgo is about perfectionism, developing, researching, which is going to be a good idea in the first half of September. And later on, moving on from the 15th, you can launch any new ideas or publishings that you want to put into the public sphere. Now let's talk about the aspects, mainly the Virgo Virgo Taurus trines. Now this one, Virgo falls in that 10th house, like I mentioned, and Taurus falls in your 6th house of day-to-day, routines, lifestyle, how you're upgrading things, what you are redefining in this sphere. It can also be your occupation. So both of these houses connect with career on some level. But while the 10th house rules your profession itself, the 6th house indicates what do you do every day in order to get to that ultimate goal or ambition that you have. So this being in a harmonious aspect is quite beneficial for your career, for your public status. It's also great for your lifestyle and upgrading your beings and routines and everyone else that depends on you. All in all, this is quite harmonious. And because it's an earth trine, this is going to give you some tangible results. So efforts from the past, they are going to show up in a very tangible form. Perhaps you've submitted a document and you didn't know what the outcome is going to be. So the outcome could say that, okay, you get the grant and you can do your research and you will get paid for it, and so on. Now, because it is harmonious, I'm really thinking that this is going to be some sort of good news. Okay, let's get into it in more detail. On the 4th, we have Mercury trining with Jupiter, and Mercury is in Virgo in that 10th house, and Jupiter is in Taurus in that 6th house. Jupiter is retrograde at this time. Now, and also Mercury, by the way. Now, the same aspect of Mercury trining with Jupiter is also going to repeat on the 25th of the same month, but at that time, Mercury is no longer retrograde. Okay, so let's talk about the 4th first, and then I'll put into context what the 25th means. All right, so Mercury trining with Jupiter indicates that you have a strong philosophical bent of mind, or you have a research-oriented process. Any steps that you take around this time, any promises you're making to yourself, you're likely to keep up with it. But now keep in mind, both of these planets are retrograde, so certain edits are likely, certain changes are possible, but whatever changes happen, you trust that this is going to be for the best. And I say trust because Taurus rules trust as well. Okay, so anything that comes around here, go with the flow and trust your intuition. It is going to lead to something beneficial. This can relate with your finances as well. If you have been, for example, saving a certain percentage of your income, you might decide that that is way too stringent for you, for the lifestyle that you're hoping for. And you can always make more money because you have a steady job or a permanent contract or something like that. And therefore, you can give yourself a little bit of a leeway for, I think, let's say 3-4 months or 6 months or even a year, so that you can upgrade in whichever areas that you need to, and then you can maybe go back to your previous solutions, and time will tell what exactly the solution is going to be. So leaving yourself a little bit flexible is going to be a good idea. Also, this indicates you might get some epiphanies connected with your professional sphere. Perhaps a certain career is calling to you, and you want to follow your purpose, and you might not have known how exactly, but now it becomes a little bit more clear. Again, the exact direction may not be clear, but the purpose itself is coming to the forefront. Now, on the 25th, when Mercury is no longer retrograde, this indicates that you are revisiting that opportunity that came up around the 4th, or the idea that came around on the 4th, and you are giving it a clear sense of purpose and direction. You know it so much more clearly. Okay, I gotta follow through with this one. I have to stick with this job for, let's say, 2-3 years, and then I get this type of contract, or I have enough experience to move on to that type of job. You have some sort of action plan moving forward from the 25th. Another interesting to note as a difference between these two trines is that in the first one, we have the sun as well being in Virgo. So the focus is highlighted in your 10th house of ambition and career. Every focus, every, clarity, all your endeavors are kind of channeled in that energy. But in the next one, we have the sun moving into Libra, and you are more oriented towards how can you expand your network, how can you collaborate with people along the same, mindset, or spending time with friends, socializing, not worrying too much, not thinking too much about all of this. And this type of change in focus can be the thing that helps you figure out a better way of being, or gives you a lot more clarity on the way ahead. Another trine that Mercury makes is on the 30th, and this one is with Uranus in the sign of Taurus. So once again, it's the same Virgo and Taurus houses being activated. Uranus is as well retrograde, so it indicates that the shocks and surprises, or the changes and breakthroughs, epiphanies that have happened in the past 3-4 months, even beyond, they could fall more into context in your everyday life. Both of these planets are about the mind. Uranus rules the higher mind, and Mercury rules the logical or the rational mind. So while Uranus may be like, here is the big, huge idea that I have. This is what I ideally would like to follow. If Mercury is not in a strong state, it can't really realize that into reality, right? It'll be like, oh, okay, nice dreams. What do I do with that, right? But Mercury, out of shadow, out of retrograde, in its home sign of Virgo, now on the 30th is in a very strong position to take advantage of the epiphanies, realizations that have happened in the past. So you can harmonize the opportunities around you to create much better abundance in your life. Now let's move on to the sun trines. Again, the same houses are being targeted. The sun is in Virgo, trining with Jupiter in Taurus. Jupiter is retrograde. This is occurring on the 8th. And the sun trines with Uranus in Taurus, who's retrograde on the 16th. So both of these trines talk about bringing clarity into that Taurus area of your house. So your boss might say, or your business might inspire you to add another routine into your everyday activities that you do. Perhaps having a meeting every other day instead of only one day a week, or it could be meeting up in the evenings with your employees, which is going to give you a lot more clarity about your direction and your goals, as well as give them more of a direction of what to do next. In terms of that, if your boss is someone who's calling the shots or is giving you that sort of clarity, then they could be telling you how you have improved, and they could be giving you a sort of progress report and noticing how you have changed and upgraded yourself. And this could be a pat on the back, or it can be some additional responsibilities that you've always wanted to take up, and now is the opportunity to move forward in that direction. Another trine that the sun makes is not with the Taurus anymore, but rather with Capricorn. The sun falls in Virgo still, and Pluto is in Capricorn, in your second house of finances, your self-worth, as well as your priorities and what do you value in life. And Pluto is retrograde. All of this is occurring on the 21st, and this can talk about certain struggles you might have, certain fears and insecurities connected with self-worth or priorities and finances that can have some type of resolution moving forward. Perhaps you're saving up for a legacy or for your future generations, or you have that type of ideology in your mind, and the sun in Virgo can really light up of how can you actually sustainably keep raising money for your future, or keep investing in yourself down the line so that you feel good about yourself, but also you are saving up for others that you care about. This can also talk about having some healing influences coming in, some purging, cleansing, and transforming fears from the past, or I'm getting like over attachment with money, like you've either you or your family or someone from your ancestry could have experienced some type of poverty, for example, and that has left you and your siblings or cousins feeling as though, you don't have enough. Even if you do, it's just something in the mind instead of something in reality. Those are the sort of things that Pluto governs. That was an example, but take it as it resonates, right? Any fears and shadows connected with this area of I'm not worthy, the contributions that I have, they are not worth anything, I'm just wishy-washy, I'm just whatever, or in any way that you pull yourself down, this would be a time that you get some motivation or encouragement through something you accomplished, something you've worked hard for, and now you see the results. All right. Now let's move on and talk about this conjunction we have on the 6th between the Sun and Mercury. Mercury is retrograde at this time. This is occurring in the sign of Virgo in your 10th house. So wherever the Sun goes, light and clarity goes. So this can talk about a break in the mental fogginess and return of alertness, concentration, and focus. There can be just this one solid idea that sticks in your mind instead of, hitting and missing, as is usually an occurrence during Mercury retrograde. So this is a welcome respite, a welcome break in the clouds. You feel like you can deal with the circumstances that have been presented to you by life in the recent past, and you also can develop a strategy or an action plan to move forward from this point on. This can also talk about getting new ideas regarding your projects or business ventures, or new strategies that come to light. Of course, it still needs to be implemented, but you have somewhere to go. Another thing to note is that we have an opposition between the Sun in Virgo with Neptune in Pisces. Neptune is retrograde at this time, and this is occurring on the 19th. Now, this is the only watery thing that's going on in this month with the Neptune being activated. So generally, this is a practical and a logical type of month, but then with a little bit of emotion mixed in, which is quite nice, in my opinion. The opposition here can talk about how do you balance your ideals and also reality. Okay, like ideally I would like a home like this, but really I have a home like that. How do you put them together? How do they balance each other out? It can also talk about how much focus are you putting into your work, career, or your professional sphere, or your public sphere, and how much are you focusing on your home, family, and personal emotional securities. If there is an imbalance in any way, this opposition is a wonderful day to rebalance yourself through moderation or through compensation. Now we come to the Venus squares. Venus forms 2 squares this month. One is with Jupiter and the other is with Uranus. Now the Venus squaring with Jupiter is quite interesting because it is still Virgo season. Virgo does not have any special influence with Leo, but it does have a beneficial aspect with Taurus. So it is actually helping Jupiter out at this time. And Jupiter is retrograde at this point in time, right, on the 17th. Venus is still in her shadow phase, so she's not fully strong here to kind of call the shots and direct the focus. So we're going to have to work with this a little bit more consciously in order to maximize the benefits, basically. Okay, now they are benefic planets. Both of them are about luck, prosperity, and abundance, so that's nice. Even if they are squaring, they're still wanting the best for each and every one of us. They're trying to avoid any difficulties and struggles in the whole process. But both of them are in fixed signs. There is a strong inertia that's present. So procrastination can be an issue, or lethargy, or thinking that we are stuck or victims of something when that is not necessarily the case. These are certain illusions that can surface over here. There is this strong assumption that I'm sensing that we are going to face at this time, that what we are desiring to create may not be possible. And why we feel that is because of our beliefs or our conditionings in some way. For example, I don't have enough time in the day to, realize these lofty goals that I want in my future. So how is it even possible for me to create that in my everyday reality, is something you could think, because this is activating your 9th house and your 6th house. So yes, you have big goals. Yes, you have this 5-year plan or your 3-year plan, but how do you put that into action in the right here, right now?
But squares are like triggers, okay? They trigger us so that we change. Don't stay complacent, don't stay stuck. That's the message of the square. And by pushing us into that corner, or this feeling of, am I really not going to get there? Is this really not going to happen? It forces us to think, well, you're not going to settle for that, are you? You're going to go for that big, bold dream. Just make it happen. Figure it out. Work with the resources that you have right now. That's, I think, the best way to get out of that cycle. Look at what you have right now. It may not be ideal. It is not going to be the end goal, but it is important to start from somewhere, even if it is humble, even if it's one step a day. Maybe you can work on your hobbies or your crafts or whatever it is you want to create once a week, maybe 1 hour in the weekend, but something is better than nothing, right? And in this way, you're able to cultivate more harmony with your aspirations, your long-term goals, and also maybe meet new people who are along the same journey. You can share some notes, you can understand each other better, you can even understand how you can come to service to humanity as well. And in general, this can also talk about benefiting your physical health and well-being. Like if you're struggling with having determination or discipline, this aspect can really push you to find that determination no matter what. Okay, but like I said, Venus is still in shadow, so we still have to work with this more consciously. Expecting that everything's going to happen automatically might not be the best attitude around this time. Generally, throughout the month with the trines, these are automatic blessings. They flow in and we don't really have to do anything about that. Of course, we can still work with them consciously. That's just going to maximize the benefit, of course. But with squares, it is even more important to be quite intentional. Now, the other square that Venus makes is with Uranus, like I mentioned, and that's going to be on the 29th. This is also the day that Venus comes out of her shadow phase after her retrograde cycle. So she is fully bold and fully strong. And she has been squaring with Uranus all throughout July and even into August, and it has been quite frustrating for her being in this position because there are so many changes and unexpected things that are happening around her, and she's just kind of asleep or she's figuring other stuff out. She has to figure out what, Sagittarius's long-term goals are. What are her visions? Where is she even going? What does she want in life? What is happening? All of these things. Meanwhile, Uranus is like, oh, well, you have another duty to uphold. You have another responsibility. And there you go. You have 3 more other projects and you can't take a break right now. Or there could be like unexpected developments connected to your health or wellness, or just you're not feeling up to it. And whatever the case, okay? But at this time, finally, the tables have turned, okay? Uranus is retrograde now, so it's no longer able to present huge shocks or surprises. Meanwhile, Venus is now fully empowered and is ready to take on the changes that have already been introduced in the past. So while you were not able to cope up with certain things that have begun in July and August in the most optimum way, this is the best opportunity or an ideal time to put things into place. For example, you might be compelled to say no to certain projects that have been ongoing because you know for a fact that it is interfering with your personal time, or that it is way too much for one person to handle, and you're not apologetic about saying no, because Venus in Leo is quite bold and fierce in that way. It doesn't add up. Okay, that's it. It's pretty, clear about what it wants to create. If it's not adding to your upgrade or your joy or passion, or it does not fuel your future or your future generations, then it doesn't make sense anymore. Right? So she's very independent at this time, and she's not afraid to take action in a particular direction. Now, another thing to note is that in the first square with Jupiter, it is still Virgo season. Meanwhile, in the square with Uranus, it is Libra season. So our focus is more, for you, it is going to be in the 11th house, right? So your focus is more in the networking phase of talking to other people, discussing your ideas, communicating yourself, expressing yourself as authentically, as expressively as you want. And Venus, being the ruler of Libra, is in a stronger position at this time. So that Libra sector is just going to shoot up, and it possibly has the solution to this square here. Okay. For example, your friend could tell you a piece of advice, or you're just discussing something with someone one-to-one, and you're like, oh wait, I could do that. Yes, I could do that. I could utilize my resource in this way, and that's just going to propel me forward towards my big picture goals. So Venus here is not sitting complacent. She's like, I cannot take this anymore. I will not do this anymore. I've decided for myself that I'm going to do this, this, and this. Therefore, it's time to act. Now, a few other things to mention. Like I said, Libra season is abound, and that is occurring on the 23rd when the sun moves from Virgo to Libra. That's also the day that we have the autumnal equinox, which means that it's a time for gathering wisdom, surrendering to the flow of things, understanding the bigger picture, transforming, purging, cleansing, and coming closer to our spiritual selves. And another thing to note is that throughout this month, we have a bit of a drum roll for eclipse season that is going to occur in the month of October. So it's important to take notes of what the trend is generally, especially in the Taurus part of your chart, as well as Libra, so your 11th house and your 6th houses. So your friendship, your network, your aspirations in life, as well as your day-to-day routines, lifestyle, and the work that you're doing, because those can give you some clues of where you struggle and where do you need some fateful intervention. That's where you can get some, spiritual help, universal help in October. And finally, let's talk about the moons. We have a new moon in Virgo, and that coincides with Mercury in Virgo going direct. Now, Mercury rules Virgo, so it's a pretty potent day. Also, this new moon is going to be trining, which is a harmonious aspect, with Uranus in Taurus who is in retrograde. So once again, this is showing up as benefits in your 10th house and 6th house. There can be some new projects, new ideas, or implementations you're doing that is going to help further your causes. This can also indicate that you're coming off service. If you have something or you deal with healing practices, this can be a new modality that comes to light, something you've been researching on or trying to learn in the background, you can now implement moving forward. Then we have a full moon on the 29th, which is in parallel to that Venus square with Uranus energy we just talked about. So that means that, the sun is in Libra, the moon is in Aries, and it's a fiery full moon, which is at a trine angle to you. So the focus is all going to be about how can I have more enjoyment in life? How can I savor life more? Where is that sense of thrill, excitement, adventure? Why is it all dimmed? I cannot sit here complacently. It's like a fire that is lit. It's a spark and inspiration that comes to you at this time. And full moons just make it really apparent. They're much louder than new moons because they're all about completion, something coming to a peak, a time of pivot. So if there's something that comes up here that you don't enjoy, like a hobby you've outgrown, then you have no problem saying goodbye to that, okay? Because you can always adopt something else that is a lot more exciting. You are a mutable sign, so you're much more flexible. You're also very intelligent, you're broad-minded, and you're interested in so many diverse topics that you can easily find some more hobbies or activities that you're more interested in at this time. This can also indicate that you're more inspired to go for physical activities or competitions, for example, to prove to yourself or to upgrade yourself in some way. And because of this fieriness, Venus as well is getting more ignited. Now, this Aries is also in a beneficial angle with Venus in Leo. So once again, a fire grand trine is occurring almost not by degree, but by the zodiacs themselves, and this indicates that there's high energy, high stamina, and caliber surrounding you. This is a wonderful time to get started, get going, and create something that others may not approve, but that's not really your concern at this time, and this can just maximize your creativity in some way. Conceiving an idea or putting an idea that has come in the past into practice is also a very good way to utilize this energy.
So that's what I have for you. Thank you for being here. I really hope you enjoyed and that the messages help you out throughout the month. Stay tuned for the tarot reading as well. I will be uploading them soon. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you're notified whenever that's up. And if you enjoyed the reading, please do like and comment your thoughts if you have any. It will be really lovely to hear back from you, and it really helps the channel grow as well. I will see you some other time. Until then, take care. Bye.